detective. Thrill me.
Thanks for joining us again. Another episode of the Thrill Me podcast. No Gibbo this time, but Matty's back.
I'm here.
And we've said his name 5 times. This week's the Candyman. The Candyman from 1992. Before we get into all that, though, what have we been watching? Matty?
I got a small list this week. I watched a 19. I think it's early 90s, but classic comedy, Let It Ride, with Richard Dreyfuss and a very young Jennifer Tilly in it. She looks sensational, well done. But some of the best bit comedy actors in that ever. Like, it's just such a good movie. Richard Dreyfuss is a bit crazy, but good fun. I watched Halloween 2. Catching up to you blokes a little bit with some of the stuff that I've watched. I didn't mind that. It had a bit of it didn't make sense, but it never does. It never does, right?
No, it never does.
Never does. Yeah.
You got to overlook a number of things.
There's some inconsistencies. I think that's where we'll leave it.
I like that. It just picks off. Can't recall having seen it where a sequel pick up right off where the last one's finished. So,
and my take on it was that when we covered it on the podcast here was that for the first 45 minutes, it is very much in keeping with the original.
Yeah, absolutely.
And does some really good things.
And when it goes away from it,
yeah,
that's where it falls apart.
A little bit out of hand as it goes on.
Yeah, but that was good. Some good camera work in there, and just I really like that. I was just in the background. Had Secret Life of Us on. As I was telling you, Blakes, earlier. It's dodgy Australian drama from 20 years ago. But
I reckon it'd be 20 years ago.
Yeah,
I believe we've got it out there on DVD.
Yeah, don't look it up, guys. It's not that good. But
no, I've never seen it, but
it's got good music in it. I was just saying.
I believe it's on Stan. Is it not on Stan?
It's on. It's on one of those. It's on Channel 7 or something.
I haven't looked.
Yeah.
Yes, you have.
You got bigger fish to fry.
Yeah, punched it through.
I've got dumber fish to fry.
Yeah.
But I've got NBA fantasy championships to win, so I haven't watched as much TV as I want.
Okay,
that's a stress on the time.
Is that it?
Yeah, that's it. That's
Jared,
pretty.
What do you got?
Basic.
What's your volume like?
All right, I kicked things off with Behind the Curve, which was a mutual friend of Matty and mine recommended it to me. It's about flat earthers. So it's a doco that's on Netflix. It's actually really good because it doesn't really take the piss out of these guys, but it lets them sort of just give you their whole...
I read about this. Is this the one where the guy was saying that he started believing it by the end of it, or...?
No, the thing about it is it's gives them sort of enough rope, but it goes into the psychology of it. It has people talking about the reasons and the phenomena psychologically why you would believe something that's quite clearly. I mean, we could go into whether you believe all that stuff or not, but it seems to me it's pretty cut and dry. But there's all these reasons why people do it, just to be included into something, all these different reasons, which is really interesting. And they don't really take shots at these guys. They show parts of why, these groups of support for people and things like that, alternating with where you're watching parts of it going, these people are just off the planet. Like one bloke was talking about
off the planet, but flat.
Off the planet. He died off the edge. But one bloke was talking about how he no longer speaks to his mother, his brother, his father, because they don't believe that the Earth is flat. And I'm just like, that's extreme. But the funniest thing is they follow these guys on some experiments. And when the results don't quite go there, what they wanted, it's kind of like just the approach of we gave them enough rope to kind of hang themselves a little bit. But again, it goes back to the psychology of it, and they explain why. They find a way to explain it to themselves and to So it's actually a really good watch. It was very entertaining.
That stuff annoys me. Having taught science, I just
no. My thing is like what you said, Jared. Believe what you want to believe, but NASA routinely shows us footage from space that shows that the Earth is round. What reason are they making all this up?
Yeah, if they actually, because this was a big thing when I was going in.
That's all I've got.
Whenever anyone said that, I've just said, why do we think everyone that's ever been in on this conspiracy is silent about it. What do we have to gain from pretending the Earth is round when it's not? I don't understand this. And they actually went into that too. They had some people explaining that. But one bloke is, I mean, probably the biggest arsehole of the lot of them, who's gone into... I think I'd actually seen the video before I saw the doco, but this was the bloke that went into a coffee shop and started fucking haranguing this NASA employee that he was fucking lying to the public and all this sort of shit, and ended up getting escorted out of the coffee shop and all this sort of stuff. But they introduced him with a fucking sledgehammer or something, bouncing golf balls off it, talking about, oh, my mentor told me this is a fucking brain training activity. So he's bouncing golf balls off a sledgehammer while reciting like capital cities and shit. I'm like,
wow,
what are you doing? Like,
And what's it got to do with planet Earth?
yeah, and then they start coming out with conversations like, the reason that we're winning is because we can show you this. And I'm looking at him going, he's not winning anything.
Yeah.
He's not winning anything.
You're not winning the game of life, I can tell you.
Yeah, that was a pretty good one. A shout out to our friends over at the Nostalgia Be Damned podcast. They did the Fast and the Furious.
Oh, right.
So before
Put you on
before I listened to it, I thought I'd better go back and refresh. Well, I ended up watching the entire series. So I have watched every Fast and the Furious movie since we last recorded. So thanks, fellas. I appreciate that.
They just started the engine. You took it.
Yeah, well, that's it. They started the engine. I put the NOS in and fucking fired it up. Off I went.
What's this button do?
But quite honestly, I was loving it.
Yeah.
Like the couple of the early ones.
What about Tokyo Drift? Turd?
2's actually worse, I think.
Oh, yeah,
I reckon
yeah,
Tokyo
yeah.
Drift is better than 2, but when they bring Toretto and O'Connor back for 4, things pick up a little bit from there, but from 5 onwards, they've just got it down pat now. They just know what you're there for, and they cut back on the racing.
Yeah.
Not as much racing. They're just big action set pieces and heists and ridiculous plans, but it's entertaining as hell.
Yeah.
Especially when you get the ensemble together and you've got The Rock and Statham, and then you get people like Ronda Rousey and Gina Carano in little roles just to spice up the fights and stuff. I forgot they actually had the fella from The Raid, not Iko Weiss, the other Joe.
Oh, yeah.
Joe. Shit, his last name escapes me, but it was also in that one I watched earlier that I said I wanted to have a little watch.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I can't remember the name of that, but it was untidy.
Yeah, and so they're really smart with that sort of stuff. They pick people that you want to watch in action sequences. They build these massive set pieces, and yeah, it's fun. It was a lot of fun. I saw the Lego Movie 2 with the kids. Good. I don't know why it flopped so much at the box office. It's probably a shade off the first one, but if you liked the first one, you'd like this one, no question. But yeah, they butchered the bloody advertising over here. They did the same old trick of leaving it 8 weeks later or whatever to line up with the school holidays, but now nobody knows it's on. There's no ads on the telly or anything. I saw Us.
Yep. I started watching Get Out. I'm gonna.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
that one's better. I still liked Us. It didn't grab me as much as Get Out, but again, I finished up and I was thinking about it a lot and what things mean. There's definitely a ton of subtext. Like when I was watching it, I felt that there was a lot about classes and opportunity and things like this. But then there was a hell of a lot that I didn't get. But the guy's got away with imagery and everything's very deliberate, and yeah, a lot of it looked great. A lot of the stuff I really, really enjoyed. I was definitely still pretty happy with it, but probably not quite as happy as I was with something like Get Out. But I'll definitely go back to it, and I'm definitely keen to see anything that he's coming out with, because he's definitely got a voice and he's got something very different and unique to put out there. He puts really interesting ideas out there.
Yeah.
So I saw Pet Sematary. I didn't hate it by any stretch. It was a little disappointing in some ways. I thought the relationship between Lewis and Judd was a little underdone, and I wasn't real happy with how that came about, especially having gone to the book as well. It just feels like that's so much stronger and deserved a bit more on the screen. That said, a couple of the changes they make I really quite liked. I think they probably gave away a little too much in the trailer. I think it would have been more effective if they hadn't shown as much as they did in the trailer. But yeah, there's some stuff that definitely works better than the original stuff around the grief and the differences in opinion on feelings about death and stuff like that.
Any good?
Lithgow was really good.
Yeah.
He was a good choice. I just felt like he could have been played out a little bit differently, and he could have been there a bit more early on, developing things a little bit more. I would have actually been happy if it went a little bit longer to develop that stuff. But regardless, I really liked it. It's just a story that you really latch onto. It's still got some really classic sort of beats in it. Some of the stuff towards the end I was kind of iffy on. I'll probably, have to go back and watch again when it comes out on the home or streaming or something like that to really kind of...
But it's not Amazon Prime, right?
No, definitely not that level. It was a good solid, I reckon, probably a sort of 6.5, 7 out of 10.
Yeah.
Like I still really enjoyed the experience there. But the last one I went to see was Shazam.
Huh.
So my calls on what was going to be good and what was not going to be good early on in the year are just... if I said it was going to be shit, lock it in for an Oscar or something, basically, because I was really skeptical about Shazam, and I ended up loving it. I thought it was really good. Like some people would call it a little bit trite and a little bit kind of cliched with a lot of the family stuff and things that go on, but I enjoyed the hell out of it. I really the comedy was it wasn't like massive sort of laugh out loud moments, but I was chuckling pretty consistently at things that were going on, and definite sort of course correction for DC. I would say I liked it better than Aquaman, and I reckon
Gibbo would say
Gibbo would say that.
So you should
I'd probably still have. I don't know. I might change my mind on this. I'd probably still have Wonder Woman just ahead of it, but it's pretty fucking close. So, so that was me.
I've got a lot of volume here. I spend a lot of time watching TV. Right? I watched a couple with the family. First up, we watched a movie called Thank You for Smoking, because Caitlin had to do it for a part of uni.
Yep.
Actually really good. Really
That's
good.
Jason Reitman, isn't it?
Yeah, it was really, really good. I was actually quite surprised, because I never seen it before, didn't know any much about it, but it was just really cool to see the whole spin. Here's this guy, he's like a spin doctor for big tobacco.
Yeah.
And here he is just there's one particular sequence involving the original Marlboro man who's got cancer, and he basically goes down there with a big bloody briefcase full of cash, and then essentially shames the bloke into taking it. Just kind of talks him into it. It was really good. We also watched Life of the Party. It's the one with Melissa McCarthy. You know what? That shit's got so much. It's ripe for comedy. That going back to school when you're old, but it's like Will Ferrell. Yeah. The joke just goes on and on and on. They didn't know when to actually say, right, the joke is finished. Let's move to the next scene. And it happens for like scene after scene where you just sort of going, this should have been cut off like a minute ago.
You can't affect Rodney Dangerfield.
Exactly.
That's
But Dangerfield knew what he was making. He was making us Joe Schlub comedy, mate.
The other thing Dangerfield had is I can't even look at his face without laughing. He was just on a winner.
But we also watched 22 Jump Street. That's what I'm talking about. That's the type of comedy. That's where you can mine that type of stuff out of going to college and stuff like that. So, Life of the Party was pretty average. Okay, I did see Us. I, like Jared, it had good ideas and it's visually stunning, but it left me super cold. Like, I was just sitting there going, this isn't scary, it's not suspenseful, at one point I actually said to myself, is this a horror film? Like, because everybody, part of the hype I think that maybe got to me was the scariest movie ever.
No, it's definitely more thriller.
Wow.
It was similar to Get Out. It's more thriller.
But see, this is the thing, I didn't even get any thrills. Like, there's one moment where I felt, sort of, that was quite creepy.
It looks pretty chilling when you...
But
it definitely has. I felt it had more than that.
And
I know the moment you were talking about was really, really good,
yeah.
but there was other parts where the girl was being chased and things where I actually felt like they did some pretty good things there.
But when you actually get to the answer, and I'm not going to spoil it, I laughed. And I remember thinking as I was laughing in the cinema, I'm assuming I'm not supposed to.
No, I don't think you were.
And to me, it just did absolutely nothing for me. Nothing at all. And I'm not saying the bloke... I want to see what he does next. I Get Out was fantastic. I'm really interested in the Twilight Zone, his take on Twilight Zone. But my big concern, and I've said this to Jared today, I'm a bit worried too that is he going to become like an M. Night? There's an expectation that his movies will have subtext and social commentary, and each one he does, they get dumber and sillier, and next thing you know, everyone's going, remember this guy?
Yeah.
He once made a really good movie.
I don't think we could go there because it definitely wasn't dumb.
No,
and it
I mean, I'm concerned that could possibly happen. I don't see it yet.
I
think the
don't,
ideas were still okay in us.
I think in this one, the issue for me was possibly that he tried to go too much for the subtext at the expense of some of the stuff that you said was missing. And I think you're right to some extent.
I guess it's maybe unfair to compare the two. Get Out.
I think the hype around
us.
him having subtext has been massive as well.
Yeah.
That whole, if you're watching this right after you hear things like "I'm never going to cast a white leading man" or something like that, you're thinking, like, subconsciously, you're thinking about that when you're watching.
But I mean, there definitely is. There's no you couldn't watch it and say there's not messages that he's trying to make here, like tying things into Hands Across America and stuff, which was it a poverty drive? Like it was a homelessness drive and things like that. And then when the stuff that I got out of it was definitely linked to that. So it's like, that's what I was kind of saying. Everything's deliberate and
and look, I get that, and I'm not knocking him for that. I'm saying it's good that he's pushing the boundaries. And you said it when we went and saw Glass. Shit of a movie as it was, at least the guy is trying to do something different. He's trying to make films and have characters that are different. This one for me, I didn't feel the characters, I didn't feel anything. And I think when you walk out of a movie like that, it's hard not to be pretty disappointed in it.
Yeah.
So I was quite disappointed in it. And I guess it's all coming back to the fact that Get Out was such a creepy, weird, unsettling film.
I'm enjoying it.
Yeah. So I just sitting there in us and going, I feel nothing, isn't, to me, not a good thing at all. Pet Sematary. Shout out to Luke on Instagram. He saw it and gave us the drum and said it was pretty good. And I agree. I think, like you, it's probably a 6.5, 7. And I agree that the development of characters, both Lewis and Judd and Ellie, they were too rushed.
Yeah.
You didn't feel like he would do what he did. You didn't feel he would provide Lewis with knowledge of the Indian burial ground.
Yeah. And I like now with the book, because I hadn't read it. I hadn't actually read the book. So now I've gone back and reading the book, and the book's like 450 odd, probably a bit shy of that. Yeah. It's like over 150 pages. It's like 170 pages before they even get to burying the cat.
Yeah.
So a lot of that stuff
character development.
Yeah, it feels like he would do that because there's so much more. I mean, they cut out the wife, which is a big reason why he does it in the book. And I'm not saying I was disappointed.
No,
like I came out of the cinema
I still enjoyed it.
Still enjoyed it. We'll still plan on going back to it again. Like it was just. I felt that part of the book was so important that it was a little bit disappointing.
Even if you just
especially when you got someone the quality of John Lithgow.
Yeah.
Like you feel like you just want John Lithgow on the screen as much as
even if it was just another 10 minutes of those two kind of bonding, sitting around the campfire having a drink and that.
Yeah, that's kind of what was missing. Remember in the book, he's just saying, when one of the first times they meet, Lewis basically says, "I'm on the porch at 8 o'clock every night."
Yeah,
and they actually even use the cigarette. Remember when Ellie first sees him? It's the cigarette, and that's how they describe Lewis as kind of seeing that he's there in the book. Is the cigarette light. And those kind of dropping over for a beer at 8 o'clock. I still think that should have been there.
Exactly. I would agree. But look, I enjoyed it. I think it was pretty well done for Stephen King. I watched a movie on SBS, Bone Tomahawk, with Kurt Russell. It's like a Western, but it's also mixed with like cannibalism and stuff.
Wow.
Mate, it surprised the hell out of me because I was thinking, no, this won't be up my alley. It was very slow and deliberate.
Did you say SBS and think, oh, shit?
No, the only reason I did it is I went to the TV guide and I saw it there and I thought, that one's got Kurt Russell in it, hasn't it? And then I thought, I'll give it a go.
Yeah.
It was really, really good. Like, really good. I watched an interesting one on Stan called Intruders. I'm not going to spoil it, but basically the setup is that this woman is living in a rural property with her brother. He dies. She's got agoraphobia. She can't leave the house. Then, of course, 3 blokes turn up to rob the place. And it goes into some interesting directions from there. And it was all right. because again, it was another one I just sort of cold watched. I didn't know much about it, and I just sort of, I'll give it a go. And yeah, there was a little bit of surprise there, which was good. I then delved into some shit with a Blumhouse production of Amityville: The Awakening. I did a bit of research on it. It has 18 executive producers.
Wow.
And it was originally started as a found footage movie in 2012, and then they scrapped the whole thing and started over. It was finished filming in 2015, released in 2017.
It's a long time.
So there was all sorts of crap going on in the
Spent
background.
a little bit of time on the shelf.
And it was pretty bad.
Yeah.
Had to
Yeah.
salvage something from
Where'd
it.
you find it?
It's on Stan.
Oh.
Oh, you
I'm
idiot.
intrigued.
It was a piece of shit. Ash vs Evil Dead
that's a
season
free
2
piece of shit,
and
yeah.
3.
Whoa.
I've knocked over the entire
Sweet
series
Maria.
now. Loved it. I mean, look, it was getting stale as all bloody hell. I mean, they were just repeating themselves episode to episode. But Bruce Campbell just makes me laugh like constantly.
Yeah, he's so good.
He just, I mean, at one point, what does he say? He says, I'm going to break in like a ninja losing his virginity. Quickly and discreetly, I like it. But, it wasn't great stuff, like plot-wise, but it didn't matter. Because that's not why you were watching it.
Yeah, that was my feelings on it too. Like that, even when the episodes were a bit of a dud and you'd sort of wonder where the story was going, you'd just give us more Campbell and I'll be happy.
And every time every time someone gets killed, it's just guys of blood going everywhere.
Yeah.
Like chainsaws are in action, and suddenly he's just covered from head to toe in blood.
And some of the situations that he finds himself in are just fucking just crazy.
I'm about halfway through season 3 of Santa Clarita Diet. Not bad.
I'm ditching
Jesus,
that.
did you eat during this movie?
I'm also halfway through second season of On My Block, which was also good. And I'm 7 episodes into Castle Rock, which is excellent. I really, really enjoy it. It reeks of King, you know. It's, even though he didn't write it, it has that feel. But then just all the little Easter eggs that they quietly sort of drop in about the Stephen King universe. And, I mean, I don't think there's too many authors, there's probably none, who can have this type of show, basically, based around his work.
Not a lot.
So, very impressive.
I'm interested to see when you knock over the last couple, have a chat about the end of it.
I forgot to add onto my list. I watched Solo as well for Star Wars.
Okay, how was it?
Well, there's nothing wrong with it at all. Some of the camera work's amazing in it. Some of the visual stuff's amazing in it, and it's a Star Wars flick. You've got your action scene at the beginning. You've got your big finale fight at the end.
Yeah.
And you've got relationships with people in the middle, and it's good fun. I really enjoyed
it.
Yeah.
I might have to give it a run because it's on.
I sort of wish it got a bit more. Like as far as it's better than the earlier episodes of the 1, 2, 3 of the Star Wars.
Oh yeah.
I liked it a million times more.
90% of what we've watched on this podcast is probably better than that.
So a bit underrated, I think, in terms of box office expectations and all that sort of stuff.
Well, the cost. What was the cost? 450 million. That was the biggest problem, I think.
Better than Aquaman.
But they basically.
Poor Aquaman. Jesus.
But they basically redid it. Didn't they? Essentially, they shot Solo and then redid it. That's why it cost so much. All right. That's everything. Let's take a break. Here's the trailer for 1992's Candyman.
Have you ever heard of Candyman? If you look in the mirror, you say his name 5 times.
In cities everywhere,
Candyman.
they whisper his name.
Right. Candyman.
It's just a story,
Candyman.
Candyman.
just a ghost story.
Candyman.
An entire community starts attributing the daily horrors of their lives to a mythical figure.
The legend first appeared in 1890. He was attacked, mutilated, and burned to death. Poor Candyman.
Helen, a woman died in there. Leave it.
Everyone knows he isn't real.
That's modern oral folklore.
Everyone. Except Helen Lyle.
Bernadette. It ain't safe around here. I don't scare too easy. Wanna know about Ruthie Jean?
They ain't never gonna catch him.
Who?
Candyman.
Who is that?
I came for you.
Do I know you?
Now she is about to discover
Helen? Get out! Get out!
what's behind the mystery.
I'm sick.
What's behind the legend.
Listen, he's under the bed.
And most terrifying of all,
Come with me.
what's behind the mirror.
He's here.
Candyman. You don't have to believe. Just beware.
Candyman from 1992, written and directed by Bernard Rose. Known for Paper House, he also made music videos for UB40 and Bronski Beat. And then didn't you point out that he may have made some sort of softcore pornography after Candyman?
Yeah, well, I looked at his IMDb and there was something on there about a Playboy series that described it like a
Tales from the Crypt.
Yeah, like an episode. He kind of I don't know, just a number of softcore titles under some sort of banner.
And this it is based on The Forbidden by Clive Barker. Produced by Steve Golan, who produced The Revenant and Spotlight, Alan Paul, who produced 6 Feet Under and Black Rain, and I'm sorry about this, Sigurjus Syvertson.
Nailed it.
Nailed. Who did The Killer Elite and
Oh,
Brothers.
jeez, you're just a man of the world, aren't you?
We've got to send a listener shout out as well, because this one was recommended
Yes.
by Tobias Cuthbert Hughes Brown. So
We should have got his take on the film too.
yeah, well his take was it's a little bit like Freddy,
Yeah?
but kind of good. That was his. That was our conversation when I spoke to him.
Get a bit more out of him, I reckon.
Yeah.
Stars Virginia Madsen as Helen Lyle, Tony Todd as Candyman, and Xander Berkeley as Trevor Lyle. The budget was estimated at $6 million, and the box office was $25 million in the US. On the DVD commentary, one of the producers says that had Virginia Madsen not been available, the part of Helen would have been most likely gone to then unknown actress Sandra Bullock.
Oh.
And Eddie Murphy was interested, wasn't he?
Oh, I think he was considered. I don't know.
Holy Christ. But that article mentioned that his reason for leaving could have possibly been his height and or the amount of money he was asking for.
Definitely the amount of money, surely.
Imagine him being in this. It would have been
a very different picture, I'd imagine.
I mean, Eddie Murphy's a good actor. I'm not saying he's not, but not in this type of
Couldn't
role.
have done it.
No, I don't
I believe he cropped up not long after this with Vampire in Brooklyn.
Yeah, well, it was good enough for Wes Craven, wasn't he?
All right. Matty, thoughts, mate?
Hey, look, I thought it sort of started out a bit slow, but it definitely picks up, and it turned into something that I really enjoyed. The action started getting a little bit better. I guess things started falling into place in terms of actually raising some questions, and a lot of the build-up that they had paid off at the end. So I really enjoyed it. I'm happy to give that a 3.5. Easily.
All right. 3.5. Nice. Jared?
Yeah, I'm 3.5 for sure. I think you're right. Like the early going was a little bit slow and steady, but once the Candyman starts appearing a little bit more and making his presence a little bit more known, it really kind of picks up. And I think it actually, like I always thought it was just a sort of generic slasher type or boogeyman type thing, but it's actually got a bit more
weight,
substance to it, a bit more weight to
substance,
it. And yeah, I was really happy with it. I hadn't gone back to it in quite a while, as you could tell, Adam, this afternoon when I was looking for the DVDs and had no idea where they were. But,
We found Candyman fell out of the flesh, though.
yeah, we found that one. Yeah, I was really pleased when we went back to it. I was surprised how much I actually enjoyed it. So yeah.
Yeah, I would totally agree. I give it a 3.5 as well. It's a solid, slow burn type of horror film. I actually think, and it's very effective use of the urban legend stuff and the setting in the Chicago projects. I think that works phenomenally well. In fact, it is a little dated, and I will agree that first 35-40 minutes is a little bit of tough going.
Yeah. I spent a lot of time in the beginning going, damn, she looks like Gillian Anderson.
But overall, it's kind of got that unsettling quality that I like about, like, rather than your Michael or your Jason, the mindless sort of killing machine. It's got more to it, and I would agree it fits in more with Freddy Krueger.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed it. And I'm like you, I hadn't been there for a long time.
It's not nowhere near as self-indulgent though.
Yes, it plays everything very straight, very similar to the first Freddy in its style.
Yeah.
From a likes perspective, and it's interesting because me and you had a conversation, Matty, when you got here. I actually liked the Candyman in general. I thought his backstory was interesting. I thought he looked kind of cool. He looked pimpish.
He looked very good.
But it was cool. The hook is a really cool weapon.
Yep.
And his voice, a lovely timbre. Rich and throaty, but yet with the appropriate amount of coldness to it.
When she first hears him talking in the car park, I'd be like, I would have jumped off the edge of the thing and just run away.
Yeah, don't finish the sentence. I'm going.
Helen. It's like, whoa, what's that?
Yeah, what the fuck do you want?
I would have been jiggling the keys.
Yeah,
right out of there.
I think it was. He was really good, actually, Tony Todd. I dug the backstory because it fit so much with the urban legend thing that they were running with.
Yeah.
Like, it sounded like a legit kind of story from history. This guy, it's the kind of tale that would turn into an urban legend. I think they crafted a really kind of nifty little backstory for him, and also brought in the whole racial stuff that goes throughout the movie as well in the backstory. And Tony Todd was excellent casting.
Yeah.
I haven't really liked the bloke in a whole lot else as much as I like him in this. So I don't dislike him as an actor or anything, but he just hasn't found his way into as many bigger kind of roles as this one. So it's definitely it suits him perfectly. His voice,
his cannonball exit out of the room out of the psychiatrist's office.
He
does the back. I've never seen anything like that. I doubt I ever will. I thought that was great.
He's also a very big man. He's like
6'5".
6'5".
I believe that.
6'5", got the right vocal range. And I just loved my part. The thing that I also liked was that the backstory is sort of. It also included a little bit of that racial stuff to it. You know, the whole thing about him being asked to paint the picture of the plantation owner's daughter, and she's of course white, and then he falls in love with her, and then they lynch him basically, and it's quite confronting stuff. You know, they cut his hand off with a rusty blade, and then they cover him in the bees and everything. Like, it's real bloodthirsty.
I like the bees about him
stuff
as well. That's such a weird thing. You've got a definite sign of his presence. Bees start appearing, and that's something that's really visual and visceral. You can hear it, and then you've also got a hook that's used very effectively in a lot of different ways when he's interacting with people.
Yeah.
He did. His look was a bit ridiculous for me.
When I first saw him, I must admit, in the car park, I did think to myself, looks like Snoop Dogg.
But I don't know how else you could do it. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not creative enough to come up with a reasonable.
Well, we saw
solution
some
to
stuff, didn't we, Jared? Some stuff where they had pictures of what the Candyman looks like.
We actually. Well, it was a picture of Candyman from like an adaptation in a magazine where they'd got a picture to go along with it. Kind of looked like Bigfoot with a hook on its head.
It kind of looked like that thing out of Death Note.
Yeah. You could have done something
monster
cooler
type
with the
of thing.
bees, I reckon. I don't know.
Still could have used Tony Todd's voice though.
Yep.
Definitely.
I really dug the through line about urban legends.
Yep.
Yeah.
All that stuff was really cool, especially that story they tell about the woman saying there's something in the walls and ringing the cops, and they're not believing her.
Yeah.
And then someone did come through.
They set it up really well. There's
I
multiple
really liked
sources.
it. Yeah.
And automatically, you've got a university involved. You've got credibility.
You've got
something to say about that.
About
the university.
We also, like, it fits in with what they're going with too. Like, me and Adam were talking about the whole reading of it, where, you know, the guy actually says when they're talking about urban legends that they're just like the kind of, they're manifested from our fears of urban life and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And then it seems very pointed after that the whole thing's set in housing projects, predominantly
and she
black.
turns up, and of course the sort of guys hanging around the bottom start sort of pestering her, and she starts feeling really uncomfortable and all that stuff. And it ties back to what they'd said. Yeah,
it seems to bring up, the whole fear of the black male and all this sort of stuff that was going on, like poor project areas and things like that, which I believe Bernard Rose has kind of said stuff about that himself, about how the projects was very kind of deliberate, because that's a fear that people have, that even if you drive past this place, you're not going to live and all this sort of stuff.
But then they kind of do a nice sort of counter to it, where they run into that the woman living in the projects who says, we're not all like those arseholes downstairs, I just want to look after
which I guess is the point of it.
I want to look after my child. That's it. I just want to raise a good home life for my child. And I like that, again, just sort of playing with it and giving you something to think about.
Really interesting. That was like the first time she proper swore, like she was those arseholes. She started going off about the other people, and I was like, straight away they're setting up the dichotomy of this kid's sort of already on the back foot. Even though she's got best intentions and will do the best job that she can.
Well, they seem to, the things that he says, like he's out and out saying, my power is in perpetuating my myth, basically, the whole thing about the power of that whole stereotype and all that sort of perpetuating that myth is what gives it fucking credence and all this sort of stuff. And then there's parts later on where I felt when he takes the kid, that seems deliberate too, because it's like the stereotype is now, there's one point where he's feeding the kid. It's like, this is what you're getting about yourself, I don't know, there just seems to be a lot of that to it, that you don't, sometimes you watch these movies and you don't pick up on anything like that, but then you kind of dig a bit deeper, you kind of get into some of that stuff. And
I actually like the way they opened with a reenactment of the Candyman legend. Say his name in the mirror 5 times, and then there's a shit hot jump scare where he just appears, in like a quick sort of grab behind
the back of the mirror,
through the roof, right?
And I just love that, because it only took like 2 minutes to explain this is the urban legend we're talking about. This is the story we're talking about. I dug just generally the look and the feel, the projects, the murals on the wall.
Oh, the mural of him.
Mural of him with his mouth open, and there's a hole where she sort of steps through. It really worked in the context of where they were. And I think it worked really, really strongly. Like it was visually striking.
I like the fact that she goes into the wall, and I think you lose a bit of perspective on space. Like she's crawling through this wall for so long. And I just felt like that was really. It was like the room that they went to was next to the apartment, but then she was crawling for ages. I thought that was like just saying how deep in the background this thing is, and how I thought that was really good.
I actually, I was mentioning to Adam too beforehand that I'd found the article about a woman that actually got killed in the fashion that they're talking about in the movie, like going through the medicine cabinets. That there was a whole breakdown of how in these housing projects, how they were constructed. There was a woman that actually, it's almost how they explain it in the movie, but it's a fictional account in the movie. But there was a woman that was calling 911 saying there's someone is trying to kill me, and they're trying to come through the medicine cabinet. And it turned out the cops came and knocked on the door or whatever, but couldn't get any response, so they left. And a couple of weeks later, they found her body in the apartment, and the people next door had been dealing drugs or something like that, and thought she was gonna blow the lid on it. And so they got into her apartment through the medicine cabinet, exactly how they're talking about in the movie. Which again, I thought lent her to kind of. It was interesting that they'd actually taken the inspiration from something like that had actually happened, and then turned it into a pretty effective story movie as well. Like weaved it all in.
Wow.
Same with the story about I know this wasn't specifically, it wasn't legit or anything, but the story the little boy tells about the little boy going to the bathroom.
Oh shit!
And then they show a slight reenactment of everything, and it's very untidy, and it the whole idea that he was killed and had his dick ripped off and placed in the toilet bowl.
They do. He was sitting there going, all you could hear from me, and he was, God,
that's untidy. And it's being told by like a 7-year-old. And the way he's telling it, like it's really creepy.
They do some things to make you feel uncomfortable in this movie, for sure.
Totally.
Yeah, absolutely.
I feel that entire sequence where we first meet Candyman in the parking lot, and he's walking towards her, and they've got all that flashing cuts and stuff of of her and the bees, and lighting's weird and all that sort of stuff. And he's going,
Helen.
Yeah, be my victim. Be my victim. He keeps saying to her. And then she wakes up on the bathroom floor and the project's covered in blood. The dog's head's on the ground.
Yeah.
There's the cribs full of blood, and
that was messed up.
It was just like, what the hell's
They hadn't set up that he could hypnotise you, but he just was controlling her after that.
Yeah. And he kept sort of... I really loved the fact that she got arrested and was taking the rap for this shit, and it's like, it just adds another layer of kind of like scariness to the whole thing, is that this guy, he's supernatural, and yet he's just puppet mastering this entire thing that every time he murders somebody, you're going to take the rap, because there is no way to explain
and it was just, I think
who this person is.
It was so powerful that it was like, you're not the one that's meant to die, but I need to kill you in order to perpetuate the myth within my own community.
Yeah.
So I need a white girl to get killed in order for everybody else to stay in their lane and do what I want.
Yeah, and I just think that stuff just adds that layer, and it feels more menacing as a villain.
It was much more like that scene where she woke up in the apartment was like massively impactful.
Yeah.
Like when she wakes up with next to the dog's head, and bloody cleaver, she picks up the cleaver
After the jump scare with the dog that made me shit myself.
Where it comes at the window.
Yeah, that dog had some credibility at that point.
had a bit of pep.
And also, why are you picking up the cleaver though? You're already in some deep shit here.
If I woke up in a pool of blood, I'd be looking for a weapon.
I was going to say, I'd probably pick up the cleaver too, although I'd probably still be fucking trying to process what exactly is going on to be...
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd be picking up
Well, she was checking herself to see if it was her blood.
Yeah.
No knowledge. She didn't know what was going on.
The same kind of thing happens with her getting transferred to the psych ward and Bernadette's death. Same thing, he guts Bernadette, and then she just sort of passes out and then wakes up and there's a knife next to her and she's covered in blood and Bernadette's been ripped to shreds, and then she ends up in the psych ward.
Yeah.
And again, it just keeps that whole thing of he's just not going to let go. He's not going to let you go. And
got the hooks in.
He's got the hooks in. Pardon the pun. But, he's not going to let you go, and he's basically going to turn your life into absolute
Was that the
shit.
same scene? Is that the one where he came through the medicine cabinet?
Yeah. His hand comes out of the medicine cabinet and tries to grab
that was a good jump scare.
And then she runs back to the back to the kitchen, and he's suddenly standing behind her.
Yeah.
That stuff was good.
Because she was very grey when she was dead. I thought that was a bit funny.
I also liked when the psychologist gets gutted.
Just
in front of her out of nowhere. It just kind of happens suddenly. Like, he starts.
The way that they do that, because he's like, that whole boogeyman vibe. He's looking at her, and then he just goes, ugh, and then you just see the head kind of pop up over his shoulder.
Yeah.
Ooh, the creep factor's raised up.
The hook goes right up to his neck as well. It's a good
It's
incision.
a sharp hook. It's done some damage.
Yeah, it does plenty of damage. And then when she finally goes to him, and he opens his jacket, and he's just got he's eaten away by thousands of bees, and they're all in his mouth, and he starts kissing her and everything. It's just really cool visuals. Like visually, it looked stunning, Yeah.
And
it was just such a outrageous type of.
It was a throwback to Hellraiser, wasn't it?
Well,
the semi-made man. Or...
Yeah, well, it's got Clive Barker written all over it. Like that's kind of what you would expect from Barker. He's got that interesting sort of. His horror's not just straight down the line; it's out there, and this fell right into it.
Yeah.
I actually think that I like the fact that it came kind of back, and as you said, a white woman has to die to perpetuate the myth, but it all came back to his backstory.
Yeah.
And how he kept saying, "I need you, I want you," and it's always been about her, I believe he says to her. It's always been about you. And I like the fact that it kind of rolled back over to some of his backstory and tied back into it, which was good.
That whole run at the end of the burning the pyre and her
I love
being
that.
inside
We've got a party happening later, or there's a
pile of chairs.
Yeah. Lighten it up.
Yeah.
The funeral, and then obviously the ending with her. It was a nice little run at the end. A nice way to wrap it all up.
Yeah. And I kind of like that, even though the husband was an absolute dildo, he couldn't let her go, and he had to say her name in the mirror. Like he couldn't help himself because he was like he missed her and he wanted her back. And there's that short little bit where he has a quick flashback
because his new wife's annoying.
Yeah. He has a quick flashback to her, those two sort of having a laugh in the kitchen and everything like that, and he's kind of like, he wants to see her again. I thought that was cool. I thought it was a really good way to end it too. It was kind of like, she's now taken over for Candyman. I don't know how he comes back in the sequel.
I'll tell you next week. We found
the double pack.
Yeah.
Any more likes? Any more things that you enjoyed about it?
Well, that was pretty much it for me.
I thought it was kind of iconic, that ending as well, with that whole she took over his place. I thought that was kind of cool.
And I love the fact that at the closing credits, it zooms in on a mural of her.
Yeah.
On the walls in the projects. I thought that was again a really nice way to sort of cap the whole film.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, dislikes. I haven't got a lot.
No, I don't have a lot.
There's a couple of things that I'm not quite sure of, and or I'm disgusted by.
Starting off at the mild sort of end of things, the church organ, the thing with the church organ sounded very cheesy to kick things off.
50s Dracula film.
Yeah, later on they switched to like a choir kind of
Exorcist style.
Sounded a lot better.
I thought you would have been all over that, Jad. I thought you would have been loving that music at the beginning.
I thought we'd stumbled onto one of the Universal Monster pictures or something initially with the church organs blaring.
God. Yeah. And I would agree with you. It is a little slow. At times.
Initially, the first 40 odd. It takes
there's a bit of setup,
warm up.
And there's points where not much is actually happening.
It sort of pays off later because I think that the being restrained with the Candyman early makes him more impactful later on.
Yeah,
but it is a bit of a grind, the first 40 odd.
Yeah, I would suggest that just maybe a slight trim or maybe just. I mean, it wasn't really that long.
No,
it was only about 140.
Yeah, 140.
But I mean, it's slow, but not too slow. But it does detract a little bit from that early part. I actually felt the music on a whole was a bit average. Like when you bring in a little bit of choir, that gives it a little bit more punch. But the opening stuff was terrible. It was fucking terrible.
I didn't mind the music at the beginning.
Terrible.
I thought it was all right. That's rough.
Okay, let's get to the real.
The meat
of this dislike. There is a sequence where she finds "sweets for my sweet" written on the toilet wall and door of the toilet.
Yep.
Now that is in shit. Is that not correct?
That is a
the
turd
texture
item.
seems to indicate
It's pretty well scribed too. It's almost like they had a stencil and then they just wiped shit right through the stencil.
I've got questions. How much shit do you need to do that? Because it was pretty big. It's a full sentence, for fuck's sake.
I was scared that he did a turn large enough to write a full sentence with.
It was like, once you finished in there, just drop it down here.
Come on, fellas, in the bucket.
Painting a mural. What are you doing with it? I'm painting a mural.
Helen, pass me the roll. He's just, look, as we mentioned too, I think the hair that was cut off, that was his painting hand, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So, I'm somewhat shocked.
That's a one-handed gig. That's taking all fucking night.
I'm impressed that he could still craft something that looked still other than what it was made with. It looked quite
honestly,
artistic and
quite frankly, look at it. It was the bloody Picasso, the Bob Ross of fucking shit.
He wasn't meant to have done that, though, right?
It was the Bob Ross of shit mural.
The Street Toughs did that. The Street Toughs did that. He didn't do that.
Did they?
The Street Toughs did it because they were imitating being the Candyman.
What? That doesn't make it any better.
They just the whole gang did a shitting bucket. I'm telling you, and then they've.
I thought that was one of his lines. I thought that was one of his lines, though. So I feel
it's the same thing. You got to mix lies to confuse everyone, right?
Yeah.
But I thought
what better way to do that than right in the wall in feces.
Yeah, because they need to. I'm confused.
They needed to detangle the myths with the actual reality. And that was just because he came in holding
And
this.
everyone knew the Candyman had an irritable bowel.
And it makes more sense that a one-handed man couldn't have done it when 4 stroke toughs were probably
The other urban myth, the lactose intolerant man, they're mates.
Surely one bloke held the stencil up while the other slamming on the shit.
It did make more sense.
Two-man job.
It did make more sense that it was a gang because it was at least a minimum triple decker to get that job done.
For the consistency too, it was bloody horrid.
You could see it. You could see it on the film. It looked like peanut butter. It was terrible.
Are you sure it wasn't? Have we got the fucking wrong end of the stick here?
You guys watched this in slow motion, rewound it, spent a lot of time on the turn.
Considering what they were talking about that had gone on in the bathroom, I don't know. I think I was more disturbed by the writing than I was.
Yeah. It was. Still, there's question mark. My only other thing was more of a less of a dislike, more of a question about nursing skills.
Yep.
When she's in the psych ward, she sees Candyman. He's hovering over her. Remember, she starts going crazy.
Yeah.
And the fucking nurse runs in and give her 1,000 cc's.
Yeah.
And I'm like, of
Calm it
what?
down.
Yeah, no wonder I'm seeing shit.
1,000 cc's
She
is
sleeps
fucking...
for a month after that.
1,000 cc's seems a little bit fucking much, you know.
Excessive.
Like,
She might have said ZZ's. Go to sleep.
But yeah, I was just questioning the psychiatric ward's nursing policies because, right on in, I can start jamming things in her arm.
Yeah, she's getting a bit upset. Better jam with something and make it a big dose, please.
Yeah, but I didn't have many other likes.
Dislikes. Yeah, I didn't like.
Sorry.
I found it a bit annoying, but I can understand the purpose of it. But how pretentious that conversation in the restaurant with the other academic.
Yeah.
I found that irritating, but I can
in fact,
understand.
that kind of felt unnecessary because they kind of went back over some ground.
Yeah.
Although, is that where you get the meat of his backstory?
I think you get more depth to it.
Yeah.
He fills
and that
in.
punsy dude that's
He
got the
fills
long
in
hair, glasses.
I think he fills in facts. He's trying to put the facts in.
And he keeps saying, "I wrote a
it.
paper about this a long
if
time
you really
ago.
want
You
to find
should
out
read it."
about it. Yeah. And she's trying to put the human spin on it. It's the same old story. But I just found that was like the white people sitting around discussing the society's problems, but they can never understand it.
Yeah,
properly,
exactly.
You know?
And maybe that was in there for some of that sort of subtext that you're talking about. Jared, didn't you have a problem with the university?
Well, yeah, like it was universities in movies in general. I kind of this one fit in with it, but the lectures don't seem to start until 2 minutes before the bell. The guy's just getting into what is an urban legend and starts kicking things off, and people ask questions, and then next lesson we'll get into it. I'm thinking that's a 2-minute lecture. You didn't get into anything before that.
Yeah, I can watch this online. PlayStation games to play.
Yeah, and I'm thinking, it just seems like it's always in a movie that it's like we're just getting to the meat. We're just getting to what we actually need to cover. We're just getting to the syllabus. We're just getting to the material, and then the bell goes.
As I said to you, well, look, what should I read up on for the test? Just the last 5 minutes of every lecture that we've done.
There's only over the course of the term, there's only 20 minutes of material to cover here. So
it seems like I get into a rhythm. I finally get into a rhythm and something. That's the end of that. It's a Hollywood trope.
Mate, every lecture I ever went to, they were wrapped up 5 minutes before that so you could get to the classes and things like that. They timed that shit down to the minute.
Most of the lectures I went in, I got up after 5 minutes.
Yeah, I've done that too.
Hence my lack of brain capacity.
So maybe that's the university you should be going in. 2-minute lectures.
I would be knocking it out of the bloody ballpark if it was 2-minute lectures. Shit.
I think the other one I had was Ted Raimi being cast as the bad boy in the flashback.
He looks bloody ridiculous, doesn't he?
I do love Ted Raimi, but probably
not as a sort of a man who's allegedly, making the girls all excited. Yeah, remember it says she was dating Bob or whatever, but she liked Billy because he was the dark bad guy.
Made all the girls crazy, and It's no, not really working.
I had one of my notes when I was watching this was the drugs in the crawl space would make a better movie, but I think that was because of the slow start.
Right.
Yeah, it was a good idea. It's nice to see that actually the reality of where this story came from is rooted in actual really true story. Yeah. So
any other dislikes, people?
Nah,
not really.
I didn't have a lot.
Pretty solid. It was a pretty solid.
Yeah.
No, yeah.
Really, once it kicks into gear, it's really enjoyable.
Yeah. And
once it kicks into gear, a lot of the stuff that you were sort of like, come on, get on with this, sort of makes a bit more sense and and fits in with all of it. It's not really wasted time that you've got that you had. It's building up to it. Even just because I'm impatient these days, I've been ruined by my phone or whatever it is.
Yeah, that's it.
And we do get impatient more quickly these days.
I couldn't time and a half it.
But see, that's why you're a Fast and Furious fan.
In terms of
lack of patience there, mate.
In terms of where,
fuck, 2-minute lectures and Fast and Furious movies are right up my alley.
In terms of where it stands, I guess with a lot of those, like the style of movie, there's not a lot of like disparity between between what you're like stretching to believe and what you're able to believe, I guess. So I think it does a really good job of bringing that.
Well, I think that's part of its one of its charms is that kind of like Freddy, less so for Freddy, is some of that was rooted in some reality base. All those articles that Wes Craven had read about the kids hiding coffee pots in their bedrooms and all this sort of stuff and dying in the middle of the night for no apparent reason. But this, I felt, did a better job of creating this world that you could kind of get a sense of, okay, the urban legend is born out of all this and he's just an extension of that, you know? And the supernatural element is just the Candyman.
Yeah.
And I think it worked well.
It might have been able to do a slightly better job of, I guess, making you think that of her being confused. Is she crazy, or is the Candyman, does he exist? But I think all in all, especially for the time, like did a really good job.
Yeah. All right, that's Candyman. If you can find us on Podomatic, iTunes and Spotify. Send us an email at thrillme@iinet.net.au. We're on Facebook at Thrill Me Podcast Australia and on Podomatic at thrillme.podomatic.com. We're also on Instagram at thrillmepodcastau. Our next episode is called From Paris with Love. It doesn't sound like our sort of movie, but it is. This is a Gibbo pick and possible stitch-up. wait till next week to find out if it's legitimately a stitch-up. But until then, take it easy, and we'll catch up with everyone later. Cheers. Find the podcast at Podomatic or on iTunes. Don't forget to rate and review. Like us on Facebook at Thrill Me Podcast Australia, or contact us at thrillme, all one word, all lowercase, at iinet.net.au.